to the cloud.
And let me see. We might be live. Okay, I think we may be live. I'm not 100% sure. So this is all
a little bit of a lag, but
yeah. Wait, hold on. No, I think I need to click, check that your stream is connected. Okay. Okay, we may be, let me check real quick. Can anyone tell if we're live?
I'm scrolling on the Art League page. I don't see anything pop up.
we just got there's a lag, but we can act as normal.
Okay, I think we're live now. Hold on. I just got like a red setting up your meeting for Facebook Live.
My Zoom says meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. Same.
There we go. I
Hi,
see this now.
everyone.
Are we live?
Yeah.
I'll monitor the comments on Facebook all too, so those
Thanks.
viewing have questions, leave comments, and I can put them in our group chat or say them when we get to that time.
Cool. So I'm gonna mute myself. Those of y'all listening through Facebook, we're just have a quick little delay. So give us about 3 to 4 more minutes and we'll be back in just a second. So.
If we talk, is it running on Facebook Live?
Maybe.
Maybe. Well, I'm just going to put it out there. At this point, it doesn't matter. But I think we're doing a pretty good job as far as technology, because City of Dallas tried to do the Zoom thing, and it was a mess, and everybody made fun of them. So we're doing really great. So all the council members are like, didn't know how to turn off their mics, and it was like echoing, and people are like, what the fuck? So Krista and Erika, what have y'all been doing with your time? Making work, or yeah?
I teach, so I've been working on that virtually, and I try to get in the studio. I haven't really been super productive, but I get in there and stare and sit.
Yeah, I've been working from home, working in the studio a little bit, not as much as I would like to, but I've taken up gardening with the extra time, so I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome.
Great, yeah. People have been checking in with me. I'm like, I'm doing fine. Like, I'm an introvert. I'm fine being by myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I like being at home, so it's not that bad, but
Yeah, I do miss seeing my friends in person, but it is nice being able to slow down and not doing a million things per minute.
Yeah. And Krista, you work at a commercial gallery. How has it impacted you all? And you don't have to get into details or anything, but
yeah, so it's weird because right now is like the time that Dallas Art Fair would be. So they did the online Dallas Art Fair, which seemed to do really well. It seemed like a lot of galleries got interest and inquiry and sales, and a lot of movement around that. So that was heartening.
Oh, good.
Hey, I'm sorry, I'm just going to update y'all. So we're hoping our third artist will be able to jump in, but there's a few technical difficulties. So I think we're just going to go ahead and get started, if that's cool. So Gio, I'm going to turn over here to you, okay?
Perfect. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Giovanni Valderas with the Fort Worth Community Arts Center, and we are doing 3-on-3, and we have 3 artists joining us today for a quarantine crit night, and it is Erika Whitney, Krista Chalkley, and Jacinto Mejia. I probably butchered that, but
also real quick, if Jacinto can't join us, she's going to jump in on the next round. So
perfect. But I want to thank everyone for joining us, and thank you, Dennis Nance from the Galveston Arts Center, and Sarah Beth Wilson from Art League Houston. Sorry, I never know if I'm getting like names right. Anyway, this idea just came to us because Sarah was doing like this kind of check-in, and we're like, this could be interesting, like, or it could be really bad, but we should do it. And then we decided to do it, and we had some great responses, and we figured we'd do the first one, and we hope for this to be like a rolling thing, and continue to kind of look at other artists' artwork and kind of do some cross-pollination with artists and curators and other arts professionals. So let's go ahead and get started.
awesome. There you go.
Perfect. So first up is Erika Whitney. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Erika, and briefly talk about your work.
All right. Hi, I am Erika. I am an artist, and I am here in Houston, Texas, and I teach art. I teach at a few different places, at San Jacinto College, at Houston Community College, and at Art League. or I teach painting, and I teach art appreciation as well. But I really enjoy teaching the course I teach at Art League, which is non-objective approaches to abstract painting, which is what I do. I make non-objective work. I am very interested in material. So I've been exploring with plaster mostly lately is like my new thing. So I've been exploring with painting on plaster, where I make these plaster panels, and then I also have been exploring with plaster cloth, where I'll create a form and then wrap the plaster cloth around it, and then I'll like slap some plaster over it to kind of smooth it out, and then paint on top of that with acrylic paint. So yeah, what you're seeing is a lot of different like sculptural things kind of mixing with traditional painting. But I'm interested in kind of leaving that like normal rectangle from painting and kind of exploring outside of that. Yeah, so I'll show you. So that's like my thesis show from U of H that you're seeing right there. Fun.
When did you graduate from U of H?
2017.
17. Who was your favorite faculty member?
Oh no.
I hear a lot of good things about the folks over there.
Man, there's some great ones. I love like chatting with Gail Stack for certain reasons. Just she would definitely like just be straight up honest with you and tell you like this needs just like a little brown strip or something on the side, and she was usually right about those things. Erin Perazat has been incredibly supportive after grad school. So if I ever like have needed anything and reached out to him, he's always been very helpful. Rachel Hecker was always amazing to talk to just in the studio about life and art in general. So definitely they were great, and I miss the studios for sure and having those like connections. But yeah.
For me, I think what I appreciate about your work is that there's this kind of beautiful clumsiness to it, and it's really I don't know, it's captivating in a sense, and but then also when I think about non-objective work, and sometimes viewers can be really intimidated by it, but I think with you, like you kind of escape that in the sense that it because it's very inviting and playful. But I also think there's a room to kind of capitalize off of that. When I think about work, think about like how do you engage regular audiences and get them to become more than viewers, maybe participants in a sense. And so I think about I wrote his name down, Franz West, and what he's done with his objects is kind of somewhat similar. I'm sure you're probably familiar with him, but you know, this idea of engaging, like, and I think for me the most successful art is, you know, not only can it engage the kind of academia world, but also like the general public and what that looks like, and for me, like I'm all about like getting like the regular person to be really interested in it, and also like I was also like thinking about also Lucas Samara's work and how these kind of non-utilitarian objects, you know, what that looks like in the slow reveal, if it's packaged differently to make it look like it's something. And you know, there's a local artist here in Dallas, Lily Hansen, that does really interesting stuff where you can't quite tell, like, is that like a weird Japanese bottle opener, or is this art, you know? So it's really interesting. But I think for the most part, like I find it really fascinating and seeing, you know, like what, and I love this piece and how that little white blotch of paint right there, because it breaks down that preciousness of an object that most artists want to kind of try to kind of create and heighten. And it's like, breaking that little boundary, like this little free radical. So feel free to anyone else to jump in.
Yeah, Erika, I want to chime in on this. I was excited to see, I guess I had seen your paintings, but I hadn't really seen the more sculptural. But one thing,
do you want me to put it back up?
Yeah, I like looking at the images with it, but I guess I can see them in her studio too.
I will put it back up.
But a question I had was, how do you decide? Can you talk a little bit about how do you decide if a piece should be sculptural versus a painting? Or I even noticed like you have the one piece that's on the floor. What makes those decisions in your mind? And I think there's one image that looks like a floor piece, but I'm curious if you've explored with more floor pieces.
Yeah, so I feel like, especially when I was in grad school, like I really was like working with like paper and kind of like installational kind of stuff, like more like works on paper that were coming off the wall and becoming sculptural, but not quite sculptural yet. And once I got into grad school, I started like messing with actual sculpture and like things in the round. And it's a little different now. I think I can kind of work on them simultaneously, but they were something that I couldn't work on at the same time when I was in grad school. It was like, okay, I'm working on paintings right now, or I'm working on sculpture. And if I got stuck on painting, then sculpture would start happening. But I feel like those forms that were showing up in painting, like the rainbow shape or the hoop kind of shape, or just like these mark making kind of things, is where those like sculptures started coming from. Like they become 3D. So like the one that we're looking at now is definitely like a shape that I would make, you know, like it's just like using the brush and like painting quickly on the canvas. And then the installation of those like shaped paintings, I was kind of thinking about those like mark making that I would do within a painting, and just like kind of bringing them out, or those forms that show up often in my work, and then making them their own thing. But yeah, so, and then I'll find things, I'll just like collect materials and just kind of put things together as I'm working. So like the piece at the bottom left, it's florist foam on wood, and I paint the florist foam. So that shape I'm interested in. And so yeah, they just kind of, they're kind of having like a conversation with each other, going back and forth. I'm looking at painting for like that inspiration for the forms for sculpture. And then like maybe I'll like kind of use the sculpture to make a painting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a very, I think maybe because of like the portal aspect that happens with your paintings a lot, that to me there's a very sculptural feel with those. So I think I would like to see, I mean, I'm loving, when I looked at your images that you submitted, I like got really excited about the sculptural pieces. I think I'd like you to see more of that.
Yeah, and that's
really push
like
the boundaries.
Yeah, totally. I'm really excited about working on that more. I've like bought all the supplies and I'm ready to go for like being stuck at home. But there's this like weird hang up kind of like, what do I start on right now? And just kind of getting going.
Yeah, Erika, have you ever done like an outdoor kind of public, semi-public sculpture piece, or just place something outdoor and see what happens, like what that
I haven't. I think mostly because I'm just like, oh, this is gonna get destroyed if I put it outside in the weather. But I'm definitely interested in that. In fact, like you guys had an artist at Art League outside. I don't know if she's still up, and I can't think of her name, but just I really love those like works that were like floral and like had glitter and junk.
It was Ann Wood.
She's watching us now too.
Yeah,
shout out to Ann.
You can look, we just posted some photos from inside her studio on GAC's profile today. Yeah, Ann's great.
But yeah, I every time I would go in to teach, I would like just look and find new things within those works, and I'm like, I want to make things that can go outside, and like, who cares, I guess, a little, like, who cares if they get destroyed a little bit. And like, that's kind of an interesting aspect of like having work outside too.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting that you say that, because I see your work is very ephemeral, you know, like this idea
Totally.
is fleeting. And so, you know, that again, I'm a little biased, but, you know, like putting stuff out in public and seeing what happens and see how people engage with it, giving it to the universe and seeing what the universe does with it.
Yeah, I'd definitely be interested in that. And like, I tend to make things on this almost like model scale. And I'm always like, I mean, of course too, like just making work within my home, in my home studio, like making a large piece seems a little intimidating, because like, where would I put that for storing? But I'm always like, I want to make like that piece that you're like, we're looking at right now. Like, I want to make a giant one of those, or something that you could actually walk underneath would be awesome.
Yeah, I think that's what, I think it's, I would really encourage you to explore more with the sculptural feel, because I mean, you're basically making paintings, but through sculpture, because there's such a painterly quality to them. But I'd like to see bigger, I think, too. And I know that gets complicated with materials and storage, but I think there's some potential there that could be pretty cool.
Yeah,
I like the kind of blurred line that you've made. It's funny to try to distinguish the paintings and the sculpture for me. Like, I think that the area where they're kind of between the two is the most interesting for me, because it's like, well, yeah, it's a painting, but it's also a sculpture. And then the sculptures would look sometimes like a bit of debris from a painting, or like a scrap that you picked up and reassembled. So to me, I find that like to be a really interesting place for the work.
I'm just curious, because there's, I do not come from an art background, so I will share all of that with you now. If you want to see my undergrad drawings, I can be bribed with wine, but I did art history. That was my background. But I'm curious, as an artist, when you're looking at transitioning from 2D to 3D, like, is it like a challenge in your mind that you're having to like go through of like, no, I'm a painter, no, I'm a sculptor? I mean, what's going on there?
Well, the biggest challenge is like getting off of the wall. Like, when if I try to think of something for like in the round, I have a hard time of thinking about it all the way around. I still want to like put things against the wall, or have it like, you know, like these you're seeing like come off the wall. So yeah, I still very much think about them like paintings. So like, usually they kind of look the same all the way around if they do come off the wall. So that's definitely a struggle for me.
And what is the average size of these works? They look somewhat small.
Yeah, I would say like they're around like 12 to 15 inches, like tall and wide, around there. 18 inches maybe at the most. The floor piece is probably like 2 feet tall. And yeah, that one's about 2 feet tall. And then the like rainbow piece that's coming off the wall is probably 12, 15 inches or so tall.
So where do you see your work moving forward?
I'm gonna definitely continue this exploration of like the plaster. I've been working on these like plaster paintings where I'll build this form around the panel, like a wood panel, and then pour plaster around it so it has this like kind of funky shape. And then like I'm like messing with the texture of the surface as well, because I'm interested in that like textural kind of look, but it's really nice to not have to like just use a glob of paint to get that texture. So like doing those things, and then also continuing with these shaped forms, these like plaster forms that I'm working on. I'm like definitely continuing those, and yeah, I'm excited about them.
Good deal. Well, thank you for sharing. I think it's been great to kind of look at your work and have everybody's input. I guess we will move on to the next artist.
Well, real quick before we move on, we've got Krista and Jacinto. Can you hear me? I can see you.
She's on mute, yeah.
Yes, I can speak as well.
Great. Awesome. So we've got our other two artists on here. I just wanted to see if y'all had any comments for Erika or wanted to chime in. And
Good point.
I do love the color choices that she's making, and I see what you guys were saying about somewhere in between painting and sculpture. I love the shapes, and the colors are amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really like this. I'm a big fan of like the reveal of an artist's hand. I feel like it feels more personal, and I feel like Giovanni touched on that really well, what he said. So yeah.
Cool, thanks.
I'm curious though, Erika, too, like coming out of the U of H grad program too, I can think of two artists that I interact with today, like Jessica Nance and Melinda, and now they're making ceramics. Have you ever played with ceramics? Have you gone there yet?
I haven't
It seems to be like a pathway.
Yeah, no, I'm good friends with Melinda, and I think like her work is amazing. And we've been talking, and she's like struggling with this, like being at home and not being able to make ceramics right now. So we've been talking about how to like get that like tactile feel from like paper and like like just kind of destroying it and folding it and moving it around in the same way, but also like, you know, painting it still. So I'm also kind of like interested in that same idea right now. But no, I totally would love to like do some ceramics. I just haven't had the opportunity since grad school. I teach and we have a kiln, but we don't have a ceramics class at San Jacinto College. So I'm kind of like, maybe I could explore that a little bit, but not yet.
It's just interesting to see like how the painting programs, like making like the objects that come out of the painting program have been really interesting to see how they grow and change from like that kind of that program. So
yeah, I don't know.
I think one of the most exciting things for me, this has always stuck with me, and I don't know why, but I remember when I was in grad school, this mindset was changing, but I remember a colleague and I being told that like if you worked for a for-profit gallery versus a nonprofit museum or something, then you can never switch. You know, you've sealed your fate working in you know, the commercial gallery scene versus, you know, you could never go to museum. And I also remember very much feeling like, and I know I'm speaking not from being in those programs, but feeling like the art programs were very segmented as well. Like you were painting, you were sculpture, and I know every program is different, but one thing I'm really loving seeing with your work, and I think some of the other artists we'll look at today as well, is that y'all are really crossing those boundaries and just trying out like what sticks, what works, what feels good. So yeah, I think I'd continue to, I love like Dennis's comment on the ceramics. I could totally see these being like ceramics and, or like, you know, using paper in interesting ways, but I like that idea that you're pushing the idea of how we look at painting and whether it is just two-dimensional.
Yeah, and we had like a show, I curated a small show at San Jack North, and it was like 5 or 6 of us painters who all like make paintings, but also do other things as well. And we were kind of talking about that boundary between like sculpture and painting and how we still see them as painting in this way.
Awesome. Well, Erika, thank you. Is there anything else for Erika? Real quick, Dennis, do we have any comments on Facebook or anything? Or are we good?
Oh, Christine Alexander said, I think the main potential in these pieces is developing the conversation between them in more depth.
That's a good comment.
So that's a comment. I think there's a lag on Facebook because I'm watching it and my blinks are about a minute or 2 off, but we could also
go back and check Facebook.
Yeah.
Thank you, Christine, for that comment though. Okay, so if Jacinto's ready, I think we're gonna pull up here. I'm gonna share my screen. Hopefully I do this correctly. Just a second.
Oh, also, Erika Ann Wood says that she loves your work. So just.
I love this. We're getting like real-time shout outs. This is great. Cool. Okay, let me go to this little share screen here.
If you're ever in Galveston, go see Ann. She has a nice place.
Sweet, yeah. Do it.
Pretty awesome. Okay, so next up we have Jacinto Mejia, who's an artist here in Houston. And I put, for those of y'all watching online, if y'all want to go to Jacinto's website, I put a link at the bottom. But in Jacinto, if you can clarify too, I included the still images that you sent, but do you want to show clips from your Vimeo links?
Yes, I would like to do that. Oh,
do you want to do that now, or do you want to say a little bit about your practice and kind of your work as an artist?
Let's see the last video that I was working on, and then I can talk about it.
Okay, great. So let me kind of back out of this real fast. I have the color cream box and the color in black. Which one would you?
Color cream.
All right. Just for time, Jacinto, we may not show the entire thing.
Absolutely, just a little bit will be enough.
Great, okay. So y'all let me know. I'm gonna see if I can go big here. Are y'all seeing this? Okay.
Are these all silent?
Are you guys, no, it's not silent.
Okay.
No, it does have sound.
I hear it. Yeah, thanks.
So Jacinto, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of pause this one here.
Mm-hmm.
And then did you want to watch the other one's pretty quick. I don't know if you want to show that one too. And Dennis is also going to post links to the Vimeo films on Facebook for everyone.
Awesome. Yeah, let's just see the other two that are really quick.
Okay, yeah, this one's only a few, like it's under a minute. Awesome. And then I've got up here, so I'll go back to my PowerPoint here. So I've got the stills you shared, and I guess what I'll do, Jacinta, is maybe we'll just start with the videos, and I think this is an extension of one of the videos, correct?
Yes.
Yes, so the viewers on Facebook, y'all can go and check out the full length of the videos there and find them. But one thing I want to talk about, and I love that Dennis asked early on, was their sound. Because to me, when I watched these, I was actually sitting outside, like getting some vitamin D and like just watching these films, and it struck me how important light and sound are in these. And I was wondering if you can talk a little bit about that, but then also share a little bit about your work and kind of what led to these.
Yeah, the sound is like, I'll say 60% on these videos. Some of the comments I receive is that the sound kind of grounds them down to earth, because otherwise it's too dreamy. And what I really want is to focus on the matter that is around us, like the materiality of the world. That's what I'm interested on, and kind of representing matter through my, I don't know, through my aesthetics.
Interesting. So that was one thing too, like textures. I mean, I kept wanting to feel, like I loved seeing your hand come through in the first one we watched, because it really kind of gave me the sensation. I see Gio's head shaking too. Like it gives you that sensation that you're feeling those. So I'm going to scroll real quick, and then we'll let Gio and Dennis chime in too. But let me go. And Jacinta, I also pulled this image off your website earlier just so we could see the background a little bit better. Viewers could see. But this is one of your Lightbox projects as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about this series?
This series is kind of the beginning of this creating of spaces for light to happen. And then after life comes, I started noticing other things like the sound. Yeah, everything started with this series.
And
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Yes? Okay, good.
Yeah. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I was hearing perfect, but my phone was like, you're mute.
No, we can hear you fine. And so I'm just going to scroll through the other images you shared too, if you want to share a little bit about those as well, just to get us started.
Yes, so this one is, it's kind of like a in between furniture and in between space. So it's a series, I don't know, it's a weird series now that I look at it.
And then we'll go, I think you shared this image as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so what I can say about the practice is that I'm really looking at physics, reflections, colors, sounds, kinetic answers between materials. It's like between fascination and experimentation. I'll say to myself, like what I really enjoy about what I'm doing right now is like observing and making things happen.
Would you say these sculptural works are maybe props for the video works too? Because they feel like they're made to be used potentially as, like, you know, sets for future video pieces.
That's something it happens a lot, and I kind of get upset at that truth, but it's the truth. But I also want them to be sculptures. They serve for videos, but I really want them to be looked at and people's look going around them. I really feel they activate by being physical even though some of them will hold these videos, but for me, it's so important that they are sculptures. I don't know why.
So a question too, can I add follow up? Just watching that first video as well, are you familiar with Virginia Lee Montgomery's work? Did you see her exhibition at Lawndale? You should reach out to her and have a conversation, because I think there's a quality, especially with the hand reaching in, interacting with sort of this space, and the ASMR quality to the sound and that importance of that sound. Those are things that she's hitting really like hard in her work and does a great job with it too. I think in terms of identifying other artists that are accessible and live in town, you could just reach out. I'm sure she's been
Montgomery?
Virginia Lee Montgomery. She has a show up at Lawndale, and she's been doing their Instagram, Facebook takeovers. But we had one of her video pieces at GAC, but it was just the way you're treating that sort of enclosed space and sort of the sound and material. I think you could have a really great, I think you could learn a lot from kind of that work and sort of find ways to distinguish what you're doing, not to say that you're doing the same thing, but just to also be aware and kind of have a dialogue with another artist is always great.
Thank you.
One question I have about a piece like this, in your mind, as these pieces turn into sculptural, are they sculptures, or do you see them almost like as room installations at some point? I mean, I think this could really be cool, kind of activating a space. And
that's the other thing that usually comes are these models. There's a question, but what can I say? We don't have much space. And I think the mind, I would love to have that opportunity. I won't say I want, but I like the fact that it's like a toy. It's like I play with it, I put it away. It's not like, oh, I have to demolish all this garbage. I don't know, like also thinking about waste. I don't know. For now, I think this size is good, even though I would love to see them big, but what is the point? I don't know.
Yeah,
it's
working
that
out.
I keep thinking, yeah.
No, I think that's really important. I mean, you got to figure out how it fits with your practice. I personally love the sound. I love the light. One thing I think, especially with the videos, I thought like I encourage everyone to go watch the first one all the way through. I thought that was really cool. I mean, just the effects of your hands and the sounds happening. I'd love to see kind of how these worked out in an installation type space.
Yeah.
And how like the videos and these light boxes played together. Following up on what Dennis said, another artist that I did think of in some ways looking at the work too was Margo Sawyer, who has had various installation pieces, but also floor installations. But hers, I think, and I could be wrong on this, are primarily static, but she deals a lot with light too, and color and reflection. So you might just, I mean, just looking at some people as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I just off of Facebook, one comment says from Christine Alexander, I feel the strongest pieces are those that are based in an everyday object like the drawer, because it creates a tension with the experimental environments within. And she also says this size is perfect. Yeah. I think for me, and I've been taking notes, but what I appreciate about the work is that you're asking us to slow down. Like for most of our lives, like we are processing information quickly, like through like our phone or through TV. And for us, like with your work, you're saying slow it down, and you take like the mundane objects that we come into into existence with, and you're putting them out there for us to kind of go on this journey with you, and we come up with our own like scenarios. So it's really interesting. I think for me, like you set up these kind of controlled environments to kind of direct us in a sense where it's like you are this scientist and you're performing this kind of like scientific experiment and seeing what the viewer gets out of it. So I really appreciate that aspect of it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Gio, I'm glad you brought that up about the objects. So I do have a question about that. Like, is there a purposeful like use of found objects here? How are you deciding what objects, and especially like ones in relation to the sound goals that you're hoping for in the films?
Yes, it's funny because it happens for the colors. Like for that box, I'm looking for colors that will transmit luminosity. And
here?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So like they all happen to be glass. So like the art starts coming all together. I do have a really specific like liking for objects, and I don't know why I choose them to be in specific pieces, but every box has like its own little objects and they belong to that box. Sometimes I do know why, sometimes I don't know why. It's just like, okay, that one belongs there and that's it. But in the clear box is mostly because of the luminosity of the objects and the contrast.
I'm gonna scroll through here. Can you talk a little bit about this piece? I think this is the last image you shared. And I think it was, I was doing some looking online too, part of a furniture series.
Yeah. That one, actually, I did had a show on a friend of mine has a studio and it's called Broken Chair. And I was like the first show that he had, but it's underground. It was pretty cool. And I presented this series of sculptures inspired like representing kind of my family in Colombia. So I usually do like what I call tree recovery. If I find some pieces of wood that I like, I'll just bring them home and start recovering them. So they are like furniture, so are like part of my home, but not serving any function as a furniture, but as a tree.
I love it. I think my takeaway, I mean, I really like the films. I'd love to see, and I don't think you could have gotten to the films without exploring with the furniture and also the object-based light boxes, but I'd love to see you keep working on the films and expanding that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I again, going back to the film, I love the interruption with your hand. It's like this thing that just, I think is, again, it's kind of comedic, but also just when you think you have it solved, like, okay, I get what I'm seeing, and then you break that. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, that's what, it's for me at least. Sometimes film pieces can get so conceptual that they lose the viewer, but then your hand coming in like grounds it completely. Like, and goes back to, I can't remember if it was Erika or Krista, but one of y'all mentioned you love it when an artist still shows their hand in the work, and like that piece is so reliant on you making the motion and making it happen. I'd like to see more of that in the work.
Yeah.
Awesome. Dennis lost connection, unfortunately, real quick, but he's hoping to get back in. His internet chimed out, but I think we'll see if Krista or Erika, do either of y'all have anything you want to chime in?
Yeah, the first thought I had when seeing your work was beautifully ordered chaos. I think that's why it's so enjoyable, and I think that's kind of evident in your sculptures as well. There's this kind of potential energy that's there that's really interesting.
Beautiful, thank you.
Yeah, for me, I feel like there's these like kind of memories in them. Like it's almost like you're like taking different memories from like, I don't know, just like furniture or something from when you were a kid that like has like meaning to you in a certain way, and you're just like putting them together in these kind of like visually intriguing ways, and then the videos like kind of show this like maybe like the sound of those memories or something like that. Like that's kind of my idea from them.
Thank you.
Yeah, one thing I think you're going to hit that's challenging, Jacinto, is we all love the work, and we could tell from the visuals we wanted to talk to you, but photographing those visuals and like how do you, for purposes, it's so hard. It's always hard with sculpture and within, you know, or like a screenshot of a film, especially one like the videos we watched. But I mean, that I think will come with working on it, but that would be something too to think on is how to convey your work when it's meant to be kind of activated and viewed in that sense.
Yeah, it's a big challenge.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, I think that about, I've been timing us. We've been like sticking to our 20 minutes pretty good. Y'all are great. Do we have Dennis back on? Have we lost?
I'm in and out. It's failed like 3 times on me, so I'll try to keep on.
Well, I'm going to stop sharing, and I think it's you're up with Krista, so.
Okay, great. I'm going to try. If it fails, please someone back me up. But hi, Krista.
We gotcha.
I have your images, and you can pull your website up too, but just tell us a little bit about these, and I can scroll through, or you can give me cues.
Okay, so sorry.
And about yourself too. You don't have to.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm a mixed media artist, primarily in textiles and printmaking. Sometimes a crossover between them, ideally. And so the work that we're looking at right now, these are my tool pieces, which is kind of a look at printmaking within the textile field, where instead of layering the CMYK print inks, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, I'm doing that with a transparent material tool to create the full color image. So there's like, depending on the piece, sometimes 6 to 10 layers on each. Yeah. And I guess I do mixed media because I feel more comfortable than that in that field than any traditional kind of medium. I feel easier to expand and just less intimidated, I guess.
Really?
And Krista, you may have already said this. Sorry if I missed it. I think Dennis is scrolling through here, but are you a recent graduate from up there in Dallas?
I graduated from UTD in 2018, so relatively
recent, yeah.
So technically speaking, these are all hand-stitched layers broken down like it's explained in the CMYK, because then you leave your remnants of the thread. They're really well done. Like, they're really interesting. I mean, I'm always also a fan of fabric and that process and printmaking and layering, so it's really nice. It was really nice to see this. I was excited. I was like, what's going on here? Like, there's a really interesting sensibility to material and how to play with something like fabric, but as a printmaker. I think that's really, it's a nice place to be.
Thank you.
What about the subjects though? I guess you talked a lot about process, and that's what printmakers and people that work with material often do. What about the images? What, like these figures and then the text in this piece in particular?
Sure. So I'll start with the figures. The figures first. So I really want to explore the individual and kind of how we represent ourselves and what we don't represent, and everything that's accumulated into like an identity and also kind of the interconnectedness of people. And I first started doing more a fashion take on expression, but I kind of broadened it because I'm too curious for that specific of a subject. So this piece that we're looking at right here is actually some of my friends and artists in Dallas, Chuck and George, otherwise known as Brian and Brian. And they are very expressive. As you can see, this is their floor and their clothes. And this was kind of, I guess, the turning point from just looking at fashion into all self-expression.
You're like the patterns. I like that you played with like a lot of layers of patterns mixed within too, because there's a couple of printmakers, specifically Aaron Miller here in Houston, who's done great things with patterns, and seeing that translated to fabric is really interesting. What's this say?
So it says, "Be ready to be misunderstood today."
Oh.
We've all been wondering that. I mean, it's in the title too, now that I'm seeing it up there.
Well, yeah, being lazy here.
Yeah.
So these are new. I've been kind of playing with text, not quite a year now, but I've always had a curiosity for language, and I feel like it was just kind of natural for me to start playing around with text. And this is kind of a development over a few.
I didn't hear a beat.
Sorry.
I don't know who that was.
This
is the fear, like I love zooming. It wasn't us. Go ahead.
Okay.
I thought it was, yeah, not me.
So this, I'm starting to do a series with pieces like this. It'll be the same formally, but each piece will have a different phrase, and they're kind of like notes to myself, things that I hear that really make me pause and take the words into account and kind of look at how they could affect my life.
You gotta reach out to Candace Hicks. She teaches in Nacogdoches. She's amazing.
Yeah, we follow each other on Instagram, and I love all her work.
Again, it's like how you, to me, I always bring an artist up, especially if it's someone you can know, because it's like, how do you build your circle with the people that speak the same language that you do, and not to necessarily, to where you could, bounce ideas, but seeing that, and the idea of collecting phrases, especially.
Really quick off of Facebook, Erika Lee says, looks like the material really needs to be seen in person. Are you showing anywhere?
No, I am not showing anywhere. I'm currently trying to, so like we said earlier, I just relatively recently graduated from my bachelor's. So I'm working to try and get kind of a cohesive body together. And then I really want to look at starting to get my work out there.
That brings me to something that you said, Krista, on your form when you input, I think it was you that mentioned that, because there was a link to a heart sculpture.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis, do you have that? Is that okay that we share that?
Yeah.
It might go there, but it might kick me off this page just because my computer's
I may
like,
have it pulled up too if you get kicked off. But something you said interested me, and I'd also be curious to hear Jacinto and Erika's thoughts on this, and also like what you just said there about having a cohesive body of work put together. I actually think sometimes it's really refreshing. Like I could totally see, and hopefully our viewers will see in a second, the heart piece. I mean, I can totally see that falling in your body of work. And I like it, honestly, when an exhibition comes together and not every piece is obvious, like this is of the same kind of project and focus and series. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I'd worry too much about that. I mean, you were mentioning in the comment that you wanted to try to figure out how the heart sculpture piece that you're working on could fit with the rest of the work. but I think it's there. I mean, your interest in textile, and I think I'd just focus on creating the work and less on if everything looks good together. I mean, that would be my curatorial like kind of feedback coming from complete, like I'm not a making art, like a creating artist, but coming from the art history side, I think the cohesiveness will be there.
Thank you. That's actually my goal, is to have these kind of different pieces that look different but are still related to each other as the body of work. So they would all like address a certain theme, but there might be some tool works and some sculpture works and some of the works on paper all talking about a specific subject.
Is that Freddie Mercury?
Yes, it is.
Freddie Mercury? Okay, cool. Yeah, just making sure.
Dennis, do you want me to share that screen real quick?
Yeah, I can't get to that.
Yeah. Oh, wait. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's that's the lingering, that's what happens with Jacinto's Vimeos. The sound, if y'all heard that, when I just leave it up. Hold on just a second. Share
so Krista, I have a question while we're like in break, or while you're pulling up the thing.
Yeah, y'all talk.
Are you like the typical like printmaker that gets involved into the process? Is it about the process, or is it about the final product or the piece?
That's a good question. I think both. So I went to UTD, and there's not really specialized art for bachelors anyway, specialized art programs. So you just get your bachelor's in art, and there's only like a couple printmaking classes. So I took both, but was really interested in screen printing and just kind of kept up with it. And I think I'm interested in both the process and what it produces.
Krista, I'm working on pulling up your image. It logged me out. I had it up earlier.
If you want to pull the website, I can get that right quick.
I actually have it right here.
Oh, well, yeah, then just do that.
Okay. So here is.
Oh, wow. Okay. You literally have it with you.
I do. This is my studio table. So it's what I've been working on recently. So I want to move into soft sculpture and sculpture in general. This is actually the first time I'm doing anything three-dimensional, but I feel like it was a logical step in my work. And this is the first piece of my sculpture that will be, it'll be a heart and an anatomical heart, and the veins will kind of evolve into roots and stems, and there'll be kind of smaller hearts budding from it as if it was propagating.
How important is it for the work to be representational?
That's kind of interesting that you ask that. I typically really like figurative work, not just making it, but also the art that I seem to prefer tends to be more figurative. And I've thought about getting more, or I guess further away from representational, but I think ultimately I'll always be somewhere on that line.
Krista, I've got your images up here.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you're seeing them. It gives people, in case there was a lag in your. Yeah, I love these.
I like it too. They feel a little more precious though. Like when you start to make it into this like handheld thing, it's like when they're on the, was it Tool you said? Like they kind of, there's still like a lot of work and labor, but I still feel like there's, I don't know, they feel loose still. Like this, once you like pull it into a form, it's like, now it's a pillow. But I still like seeing where that would go in terms of part of an installation. I'm like, make the whole body. Like I have this invisible man on my dining room that I've been meaning to finish the model. And I'm like, why don't you just make The whole
Krista,
body.
this is the best time to do it. Like, no one's coming to your house. No one's going to see it unless you share it.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. I actually have been considering remaking this piece because I kind of felt the same, that it felt really precious, and that's not, I feel, what my other work is like. And I was thinking about remaking this with showing the seams and showing a little bit more stitching and kind of less care. I mean, care put into it, but you know, like I said before, I really like showing the artist's hand.
I don't know, yeah.
Dennis is coming at you hard from a full-blown, like, someone who works with textiles, and I like it.
Well, no, I love soft things that you can, like, I make pillows. Like, I mean, I'm like, I want to live with this. I want to hug it. I mean, don't resist that, but I think go either strong into the preciousness of it or loosen it up a bit. I mean, like, it's new, it's there. I don't say, like, pitch it, but, like, it could go a lot of ways.
Yeah,
thank you.
I think you're onto something, Dennis, because, you know, like, so oftentimes, you know, art is seen as very sterile, and it is an object that we are supposed to, like, admire. But when you can, like, caress it and hold it at night, whatever you want to do with a heart pillow, there's something magical about that. It's like, all right, you know, you are transcending this idea of what art can be.
How much does, just looking at this, like, this is velvet, I'm assuming, in contrast to the 2D work. I mean, how much does that play into, like, the visual texture and the colors and kind of your decisions?
Yeah, so I actually had this lying around. Somebody gave me this fabric, but I really, when I was starting to think about this idea, I originally envisioned it with tulle fabric and kind of with that same process, but I saw this fabric in my studio and I just really liked the way that the light kind of played off it and gave it some kind of dimension and kind of, I don't know, just the almost subtlety of the metallic string and the velvet that's being lit up is interests me.
Oh,
Hi, Peps. There's lots of comments happening.
Sorry.
I finally could look at.
my dog barked like crazy, but I was about to say, I think both you and Jacinto with your work, light plays a really big part. I mean, especially if you pursue with this kind of textural fabric. And I always love seeing that. I don't know why. I mean, it's just, especially once it's installed and the care the artists take to install it. I always think that's pretty cool. So I think we're about, oh yeah, it's almost, Chris or Erika and Jacinto, do y'all want to chime in or have any comments for Krista? And I'll stop sharing my screen here since.
Jacinto got bumped.
Oh,
I'm like phone, but there's a lot of comments on Facebook too.
Oh, awesome. Well, while Dennis looks those up, Erika, do you have anything you want to chime in with?
Yeah, I was just gonna say concerning like the worry of like your work being cohesive. I think it's just gonna happen because you're the one making it, and that's something that I was concerned about as well. Like especially in grad school, it's like, well, if I'm like showing these sculptures and I'm showing these paintings and they're not together, like, are they gonna know it's the same artist? And like, yeah, I definitely think that's gonna be there. Your hand is in it, and there's just kind of this like natural like cohesiveness that happens even though they're not all the same kind of like thing. And I'm like, I think they're really beautiful. I really enjoy that like layering that's happening. And I think even like those pieces that were hanging off the wall, there's like a shadow maybe that's even happening behind them, which is a really cool thing too. That
Thank you.
I'm interested to see.
Excited for the
Jacinto-
heart.
Jacinto's back with us.
She's back.
Yeah, I'm back. I really love the velvet texture, and it's really exciting that you're moving from, especially having the experience of textile, now moving to sculpture. You're gonna have so much fun.
Thank you.
Just really quick, David Simmons Medina offered you a solo show. Go ahead and take him up on that.
He's my friend.
So, yeah, because I think he's saying it's really imperative that we see the work in person. So let's go ahead and do that, David.
I challenge you. Yeah.
Dennis, did we have any other questions on Facebook? I think you were mentioning.
My computer's being really stupid right now, but it's nice to look at the work. It's really great, Krista. I really appreciate seeing it. And it's funny because it's like we've interacted, but when we were looking at the images, I was like, oh wait, that's her. I've run into her at the gallery, and she worked with Chuck and George, and it was really nice I felt like I got to know you better by seeing this work, so I appreciated that.
Thank you.
And really quick, Maria Rockefeller says, I really appreciate the way that you manipulate the media so that it all collaborates in such a confident way, Krista.
That's Mariah.
That's Mariah.
Hi, Mariah.
I would really like to see how these communicate with one another in a space. So.
Hey, Mariah's the curator at the Art Museum in Beaumont. So we've got
Give me a show.
three artists ready to go here.
Shoot off that email, Krista.
I appreciate your comments. Here's your portfolio.
Thank you all so much for doing this. I've been doing Zoom studio visits with some artists the past few weeks, and it's kind of helped me like be sane. And I've really enjoyed, I know it's obviously better to do it in person when you can with all of your work, obviously, but it's great to do this with what we have right now. So thank y'all.
Yeah, I can't thank y'all enough for being, it's hard to be vulnerable in a public domain, and I can't express how much I appreciate you all doing this. It's hard to do it on the first go round, but I think you all did a great job.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
you. Thank you, Sarah and Giovanni, for working this out too.
Thank you all for doing
Yeah,
it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone on Facebook.
Let's go eat dinner now.
Yeah.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you all.
Bye.
Bye.